Immortal Game by Aesthetic B. Chapter 3 A Beautiful Morning. War. Verity had not been able to banish the thought from her mind since he had left the dance club. Celestia must have been the one to turn the moon red. Only she had the capability to turn the moon red.
What are the chances that Celestia made a mistake, using a millennium-old symbol by accident?
The chances were 0. The princess was not known to make even small mistakes, let alone one of this magnitude. That meant one thing. War. Equestria had to be at war, but with whom? The answer was obvious, of course. Either Princess Luna had once again become Nightmare Moon, or some pony somewhere believed they had the power to rival both the princesses and every soldier in Equestria. The thought was a frightening one. She arrived at the Carousel Boutique and immediately made for her bedroom. After searching around under the bed for several seconds, her hoof grasped a long, slender chest. She slid it out from under her bed. Sweetie Belle was having a sleepover at Sweet Apple Acres with her friends, leaving Rarity home alone for the night. The filly wouldn't like it, but Rarity would have to forbid such things in the future. Whatever was going on, whoever they were at war with, she would want to keep her sister close. Sweetie would not approve, but how could Verity make her understand? Verity opened a tiny chest. Inside were 14 diamonds of varying shapes resting upon a cloth. None of them were particularly pretty, and Verity would never consider using them as she was designing a dress. Still, she ran over her hoof over each of them in turn, feeling each facet, testing each edge. Were she less careful, she could have easily cut herself. But no, of course she didn't cut herself. Touching the 14 gems reminded her too much of days long ago. Unbidden, a memory came to her. It was her father, handing her her newborn sister for the first time. "This is your sister, Rarity," he had said. "Your mother is gone now, so we ought to take care of her. Your mother wanted us to name her Sweetie Belle, but I prefer Allure. What do you think?" Rarity had answered Allure was fine. She knew better than to disagree with her father. Sighing, Rarity closed the lid of the chest and slid it back under their bed where it belonged. She hoped she would never have to open it again, that its contents would remain hidden to the world. They were not diamonds to be worn or show off. As much as she hated the chest, its existence was necessary, so the unthinkable ever happened.
So, Twilight, how are you handling things so far?
Nihilus trotted into Ponyville with an entourage consisting of 40 or so Terra's Earth Pony puppets. The puppets weren't by any means perfect replicas. Each of them was almost entirely incapable of thinking for itself, and as such could only follow simple orders. On top of that, each of the ponies were physically identical. All male, with the same jet black coat and neon green manes and tails. Their eyes and eyebrows were all a solid green. They didn't look around at their surroundings, or walk in formation. They simply cast the additional glance at Nihilus, as if following her was their only purpose. Which, come to think of it, was their only purpose. One could never have too many witless brutes ready to die for them, if Nihilus was to be any judge. At sheer length, the other unicorn answered for her.
"Leave me alone,"
she said faintly.
"Seems your spirit broke sooner than I expected. Pity, really, as I had figured tormenting you would be an excellent warm-up to taking all your friends."
Twilight didn't answer.
"While you watch helplessly, of course,"
Nihilus added, just for good measure. It was the morning after Titan's return, and their passage through town had drawing looks from every pony on the streets. Made sense, really. The people of Ponyville still hadn't heard from Canterlot, and probably wouldn't have been able to see the fight between the king and princesses even at this distance. The whole town was probably on edge, and almost 40 strange-looking earth ponies were trotting down the street in unison. Nihilus would have preferred holding off taking Ponyville directly, instead bringing some of the other element bearers under her control first. It would have likely been quite easy, in fact, to break the minds of the others just as she had done Rainbow Dash. Her Alicorn superiors, however, had insisted she immediately take Pony and dispose of Celestia's elite, and Nihilus had to obey them, for now. Twilight responded at length, "You're a monster." At this, Nihilus laughed out loud. Several townspeople gave her strange looks as she continued to laugh at something they couldn't hear, Twilight! Calling me a monster does not do your vocabulary or my taxes any justice. I'm just starting, kiddo. This is insane, Nihilus. You don't need to do any of this. You know what, Twilight? You're absolutely right. I don't need to do any of this. But you see, it's going to be just so much fun! Twilight didn't answer her. Oh, don't worry, kiddo. I know just the thing to cheer you up. What you need is a friend. Nihilus reached out with her magic and gave a little tug. It was several moments later that a gray-maned, black-coated Pegasus came crashing to the ground in front of them. She came down fast, barely flared out her wings in time, and landed with her face in the dirt. The Pegasus spun violently, then jerked to her feet and looked at Nihilus, her expression changing from a look of defiant hatred to a blank stare. There were bags under her eyes, and mane and coat were dirty and disheveled. She had obviously not slept the previous night. I must say, my pet. Nihilus took several steps forward until she was less than a foot from the Pegasus. You exhibit a remarkable ability to resist the pull of my spell. The Pegasus lunged at her, but her muscles lightened up as soon as she started moving. She tumbled forward again into the dirty street as Nihilus delicately sidestepped her. Bad. The Pegasus mumbled to herself as he spat out the dirt. Bad, bad pony. It must be agonizing, really, to be so close to me, but to be completely unable to do anything. Twilight isn't taking it very well to her complete powerlessness, either. Is there anything else you'd like to say to her? At the mention of Twilight's name, the Pegasus' head shot up. Twilight! She breathed softly. Then she screwed her eyes shut. I hate you, she finished quickly. You'll pay for this! Forgive me for not feeling frightened, and it isn't my problem if you don't like my new toy, Nihilus replied. At last she came to the town hall, her destination. She climbed up into the slightly raised balcony that surrounded the building, and her earth ponies fanned out on the ground around her in a semicircle. Her pet looked around, then curled up into a ball beside the stairs. Citizens of Ponyville! Nihilus shouted, her voice carried to the far edges of the town square. I bring news from Catalot! The 40 puppets had brought with her already attracted a great deal of attention on their way into town, and her little show with Rainbow Jazz had helped. In moments, a small gathering of ponies was growing at the base of Town Hall. Nihilus turned to the crowd. The ponies were talking amongst themselves in hushed voices, idling Nihilus in the ring of strange earth ponies. She scanned the crowd for any of their targets, but none of them were there. She hadn't expected Fluttershy or Applejack to have seen or heard her, because they lived so far from the town center. Or Pinkie Pie, for that matter, as Sugar Coop Corner was several streets away. Carousel Boutique was visible from where she was standing. A sign out front read, Out on business, store closed momentarily. I suppose I can work with this, Nihilus thought to herself. The other unicorn was well known by the townsponnies. While Nihilus would prefer a live demonstration, it was by no means necessary. She judged that the crowd was large enough for her to proceed. Listen well, my little ponies, for what you are about to hear is a joyous news indeed, she cried. She paused, giving every pony in the crowd time to once again turn their attention towards her. The King and Queen of Equestria have returned! A murmur went through the crowd, and each pony gave each other confused looks. It was clear that none of them knew who she was talking about. Equestria doesn't have a king! A stallion in the crowd pointed out to her. We've never had a king! Nihilus nodded along, then rolled her eyes when he finished. So you have been led to believe, she said. But in truth, your Princess Celestia was merely an usurper, a rebel who treacherously locked King Titan and his wife away so that she and her sister could seize Equestria for themselves. But the king has returned, and the Sun Tyrant has been destroyed! Her statement was met with disbelief, in some cases outrage. Almost immediately, the ponies in the crowd began to heckle her. Why wouldn't anybody know if we had a king and queen? Tell us immediately what happened to Canterlot. Celestia isn't a tyrant! The princess can't die! It was exactly the reaction Nihilus was expecting, and exactly the reaction she was hoping for. She tapped into her well of magical power. It was enormous. Twilight Sparkle had been unmatched in raw magical power, and was well learned enough to make Nihilus a potent unicorn. She had more than enough power to suit her needs. Instantly, she felt the magic surge through her. It vibrated through her entire body and made the air crackle around her. Hair shimmered and coalesced into a mass of seething black ether, tinged with indigo at the edges. It began to sway gently as if it was being blown by non-existent wind. The blood in her veins was felt as though it had been replaced with liquid electricity. She was overtaken by the sheer magnitude of the power at her disposal. "Enough!" Her voice cracked through the air like a whip. Every pony in the town drew away and gasped. Nihilus swung her gaze back and forth, staring them down. No pony would meet her eyes. "Your god is dead, you pitiful little fools! Overthrown in a single night by an alicorn who possesses endless power and unfathomable intellect!" She emphasized her next words. "He is Titan, and you will all worship him with more devotion than you ever paid to your dead princess." She watched the looks on their faces change from disbelief to fear. They regained to believe her. "The raising of the sun shall now be attended to by the king and queen's newborn son, Prince Hyperion. Should you have any problems with the new order, you will petition him at court." Nihilus stepped down and began to walk along the crowd. Ponies backed away from her as she moved through them, shooting looks at random townsfolk. None of them met her eyes. "This brings us to a very important topic. Myself," she said, her voice losing her harshness. She spun around in place and gave a little flourish. "Should any of you feel that the new monarchy is not adequate, know this. King Titan, Queen Terra, and Prince Hyperion rule by divine right. They created this world, the celestial spear, and your species. Each of you owes to them everything you have. Should any of you make the most unwise decision to act against them, passively or with violence, you will be branded as a rebel." The crowd was hanging on to her every word, and she loved it. What she loved even more, however, what was come next. "And I will kill you." The ponies in the crowd were now giving her passage a wide berth. "Should any of you house any rebel, or keep from the monarchy any information regarding a rebel, I will kill you." Nihilus drank in their uncertainty, their terror. It felt exhilarated. She approached the mother standing with a unicorn filly, and the mare backed away. The filly did not, however. She stood up, looking at Nihilus, confused and shaking. "If I hear anything that makes me think you are a rebel." She leaned down and looked at the filly in the eyes, and the other pony gave a tiny gulp. "Even the slightest little peep." She gave the filly a tap on the forehead with her horn, and stood and turned to face the rest of the crowd. "I will interrogate you, and you will beg me to kill you. Should I decide I would like to kill any of you for no reason whatsoever, I will, you guessed it, kill you!" She emerged from the group of terrified ponies. Carousel Boutique stood in front of her. "Don't do this." A voice in the back of her head begged gently. She unleashed her magic, focusing on the point she imagined somewhere inside Carousel Boutique. The entire building imploded. The colorful roof, the walls, even the side out front simply burst into splinters, tearing themselves apart as they were pulled away inward by her spell. The sound of tearing wood was deafening, and sawdust filled the air around the boutique. Nihilus watched. If anything, was being even more energetic after the expenditure of power. Nihilus heard her Pegasus plaything give an incoherent scream that was suddenly cut short. She suppressed the urge to laugh. "Don't worry, Twilight. Rarity is running off some errand. I only killed her sister. Oh, it ruined her life's work and left her homeless and destitute." She thought about it for a moment. "Actually," she told Twilight, "I like the way this worked out. Can you imagine the look on her face when she returns?" Using the destructive magic and terrifying the towns-ponies had been exhilarating. Nihilus was nowhere near finished. She tapped the immense well of power again, and started throwing herself into space. The air around her sizzled and cracked, as he reappeared once again atop the balcony outside the town hall. "Pay attention!" she barked. She called upon even more of her magical power, and began to create crude illusions to represent her targets as she named them off one by one. "Reggie!" A sloppily constructed image of a white unicorn with an intricately kept mane appeared between her and the Earth ponies. She enlarged the cutie mark to ensure they all got a good look at it.
"Applejack!"
The Earth pony's image was easy to construct in a way that made her identifiable, her hat and cutie mark being distinguishing traits.
"Fluttershy!"
She noticed with glee that her stored magical hour was not even close to running out. Twilight certainly been a powerful unicorn.
"And Pinkie Pie!"
She didn't spend much effort on the final illusion. A pink-coated, pink-haired pony named Pinkie Pie would be easy to find, even for these half-witted brutes. She raised her voice again, making certain the crowd of townspeople heard her.
"All of these ponies are dangerous rebels,
and you are to treat them as such. Should any of you think to join their cause against His Majesty King Titan, the events of the day will serve to help you reconsider." She addressed her Earth ponies. "8 of you to Sweet Apple Acres. 2 of you search that wreckage." She nodded sharply towards the ruins of Carousel Boutique. 6 of you go with my pet to Sugar Cube Corner, and 2 of you to Fluttershy's cottage. The rest of you search the town. Kill no pony, but do not be gentle. You will find these 4, and you will bring them to me alive." She dispersed her illusions and looked back to the townspony. "Until every one of them is found, I will assume you are harboring these dangerous individuals, and you will be treated accordingly." She let the last word drip with menace. The Earth ponies attacked. They trampled through the crowd of townsponies and split into their respective groups. Her puppets kicked, shoved, and headbutted helpless townsponies with the kind of casual brutality suited to a creature created only for violence. Once they realized their victim was not one of their targets, however, they simply moved on. Nihilus noted with pleasure that several ponies were checked multiple times by different puppets. They broke down doors, kicked in windows, and otherwise caused mayhem. Nihilus tugged on her pet's magical leash, and the colorless pony turned to her. "Get to Shikuku Corner and carry out your task," she said. Her monochromatic toy jerked in spasm, obviously trying to resist, but eventually took to the air. Nihilus turned back to the chaos in the town square. Ponies screamed and begged for restraint. Some frantically cried for out their coat and mane colors, even waving their flanks, displaying their cutie marks to show they weren't one of their targets. Nothing worked. Nihilus watched the chaos unfold and smiled. Terra had ensured that the puppets would refrain from killing any non-vital targets, and this regardless of her orders, once he spun them for nothing. There was a fine line, she had said, between enforcing the new rule and encouraging rebellion through brutality. One of her puppets burst. She hadn't seen it clearly. One moment she watched lazily out of the corner of her eye as it struck the male mare with its front hooves. The next moment the male mare was stirring up from the ground in confusion as the Earth pony dissolved into a cloud of inky darkness. The cloud dissipated in less than a second, leaving no trace of the servant it had been. Nihilus perked up slightly. The 2 more followed after the first. This time she saw it. A rough shape moving through the crowd. Definitely a pony. The features were different, however, by a hooded cloak.
"Well, that was a little dramatic,"
Nihilus thought wryly. The strange pony moved with purpose, spinning and rolling, not away, but towards Nihilus. 2 more Earth ponies were felled before the figure emerged from the crowd. The figure, a mare, let the oversized cloak fall to the ground around her as she faced the dark unicorn. Nihilus recognized her immediately.
"Princess Luna!"
she greeted the alicorn.
"You have no idea how happy I am to see you. Let's make this quick, all right? I have ponies I need to capture."
The princess regarded Nihilus, and recognition flashed in her eyes. The alicorn gave her a look of absolute loathing. "Thou!" she spat. "Thou hast no conception of how much I'm going to enjoy peeling away from her whilst thou scream. I hope thou hast more than the unicorn magic to use against me." "I am an alicorn," She flared her wings and horn began to glow. "This was thy first and last day among the living, parasite!" The princess lunged. Applejack's hooves stung gently into the packed earth road she traveled. The harness of her apple cart sat heavily on her back, but it was only a small discomfort for the earth pony by now. She tilted her hat forward, so as to better shield her eyes from the hot summer sun. In the distance below her stretched Ponyville. But something about the town was strange. She was on her way down from Sweet Apple Acres, and she had seen an awful lot of ponies gathering in the town square. Now that the crowd seemed to have dispersed, but as she got closer, faint sounds began to carry from the town. Applejack thought she heard shouting. It was another strange occurrence to add to that growing list. Applejack would arrive in town soon enough. Then she'd find out what all the ruckus was about. With luck, Twilight would have sent word back from Canterlot, explaining the strange noises they heard the night earlier. There was also the matter of the moon turning red, for which no pony had any explanation but Rarity. Rarity's answer, however, had been too melodramatic for Applejack. In any case, her explanation made no sense. Equestria didn't make war, and that was just the way it was. True, small conflicts existed between ponies and their various neighbors, and in some cases even other ponies. But as a kingdom, Equestria had never taken military action. Ever! Applejack shook her head. Here she was thinking about things that were way above a farm pony. She was likely just worrying when there was no need for it. She sighed and began pulling her apple cart towards town. Big Macintosh was selling apples in the market today, and she was bringing him a load of freshly bugged red delicious to carry him through the afternoon. While she was there, it wouldn't hurt to check in and see if word had come back from Canterlot. It wasn't long before she spied several dark shapes traveling towards her on the road ahead. On closer inspection, there were little less than 10 of them, and they were galloping. She watched as they came closer. They were all identical earth ponies, with black cloaks and unnaturally bright green manes. The ponies were yet another item to add to the strange list of happenings. She debated whether or not she should just let them pass by, but in the end curiosity won her over, and she resolved to ask them a couple of second questions. She unhooked the apple cart and stepped onto their path. "Hail there!" she called out as the group of ponies approached. "I see y'all come from Ponyville. There's something going on down there I should be worried about?" The pony in the lead didn't answer. He simply continued charging straight towards her, throwing his shoulder forward to strike her. The pony crashed into her. It was a powerful blow, and Applejack was not prepared for it. Despite her sturdy frame, the fact that she had all 4 hooves on the ground, she was knocked into the dirt. "What in the hell do you think you're—" Her sentence was interrupted as her assailant kicked her with his forelegs, knocking the wind out of her and turning her over. Applejack gasped for air as he leaned in to examine her cutie mark. "It is Applejack," he said in a deep voice. It had almost metallic echo to it, making it sound as though his lungs were hollow. From her position on the ground, Applejack saw another set of black hooves approach her. "Take her!" The new pony said in the exact same hollow voice. Before she could register what was happening, the first pony pinned her to the ground and knelt her down on her neck, choking her. Applejack's confusion immediately became terror. She intentionally flexed the muscles of her neck to protect her windpipe, and began beating her legs on the ground uselessly. She tried throwing her shoulder back to roll them off, but pinned her too tightly. He had let one of her forelegs free, however. His own foreleg focused on choking her to death. Panicking and out of options, Applejack threw her front leg out to hit him in the chin. The punch was an unnaturally strong one. Applejack had worked on for years on the family farm, strengthening her muscles to an invincible physique. She was also an earth pony, and a strong one at that. Not to mention she was fighting desperately for her life. All these things combined into a punch that snapped outward lightning fast, with an incredible force. She hit her mark. The earth pony's head whipped backward with an audible snap. Shocked, Applejack rolled him off her and sprung to her feet. The earth pony twitched once, then burst into a cloud of dense black smoke. "They ain't real," she thought. "They're just some kind of fancy magic." At least that's what she hoped they were. If not, she just killed some pony. That thought did not sit well with her. But there were more pressing matters at hand. Another earth pony stood just meters away from her, and another 6 of them stood behind him. 7 earth ponies who were apparently trying to kill her. She had to get home. She had to make sure Apple Bloom and Granny Smith were safe. But she couldn't let these strange earth ponies there, which meant one thing. She had to fight for her life. The ponies began to slowly move towards her. She raised her back legs and brought them downward to the abandoned apple cart. The front of the apple cart shattered, sending hundreds of apples to roll across the ground. Applejack stepped out of the way of the wave of apples, but the earth ponies were not so quick. They stumbled and tripped, struggling to remain on all four hooves. The closest pony fell over completely. Applejack picked up 2 apples in her mouth and tossed them high into the air. While the 2 apples sailed skyward, she pivoted on her forelegs so that way her back was to the closest earth pony. He was thus regaining his feet. She bucked him harder in the chest than she had ever bucked an apple tree. The front of his ribcage shattered under the force of her legs. Splinters of bone pushed back into vital organs they were meant to protect. Like the first pony, he vanished into a cloud of thick black smoke. Applejack didn't slow down. She repositioned herself as the apples she had thrown earlier fell back downward. Her back leg snapped out again to launch the apples at another earth pony. It was a difficult rodeo trick, one that many ponies took years to master. Applejack had perfected it when she was 8. She aimed for her target's head. The first apple missed, but the second hit him and burst right between his eyes. The pony recoiled, blinded by the mush that now covered his face. The remaining ponies were now all on their feet, and all of them faced her. They seemed completely unfazed as she had taken out their 2 companions. The ponies didn't spread out to surround her. They simply stared ahead with solid green eyes as they advanced toward her. Applejack moved to put the closest pony between herself and the rest of the group, then waited. As she expected, he lunged at her as soon as she got close. She caught his lungs, throwing her weight and turning herself so she didn't pin her, but was caught in a grapple. She twisted and spun. The earth pony was pushed into the ground, Applejack on top of him. Applejack brought her 4 legs up, just as another dark pony tried to tackle her. She brought her legs down, crushing her pinned victim's skull as the next pony came, sailing towards her head. But the earth pony pinned top and exploded into a strange black smoke. As she fell short distance to the ground, she tightened her form, drawing inward and hugging the ground, and lunging the earth pony over her head and landed on the road behind her. She snapped her head back, waiting for the pony to turn around. When he did, she straightened and lashed out with her back legs in a powerful kick. She barely felt her legs connect with the earth pony's face before he too dispersed. She turned too late to see 2 of the remaining 3 ponies bearing down on her. They struck her hard as she was thrown to the ground again, this time landing back first. The 2 ponies were on top of her, pinning all 4 of her legs with their own. She struggled helplessly as the final pony approached. He looked down at her, his face betraying no emotions whatsoever. Raised his front legs, preparing to smash her skull. She gave one last jerk, attempting to break free, but it was no use. 2 ponies holding her down was too much. She got one last glance at the bottom of the pony's hooves as he brought them down. Yeah! Every one of the earth ponies atop her was thrown off as a massive red pony slammed into him. Make it tell us! She realized. She righted herself and looked at her older brother. He was on the ground, tangled up in the other 3 earth ponies he just charged. 2 of them laid under his hindquarters, dazed. The arrow sprawled across his chest, head locked by one of Mac's big front legs. With a jerk, Mac snapped the neck of the pony he held. It too became only a cloud of bright fading of darkness. Applejack wasted no time. She sprung forward before the other 2 earth ponies could recover, landing with a hoof on each of their necks. They were helpless, and it was hardly fair, but she long past sympathizing with the creatures that almost killed her twice. They aren't living ponies anyways, she thought uneasily, as the 2 beneath her dispersed. The way their skulls caved in felt real enough. Big Mac got to his feet and looked around. His eyes found one remaining pony at the same time Applejack's did. It was on its haunches, rubbing at his eyes, despite the fact that the apple mush had all come off by now. The flesh around him was swollen, as you could barely see the solid green ores beneath. The apple hit its mark hard. She and Mac both moved into the opposite sides of the earth pony. What? Applejack swallowed. Should we do with him? She met her brother's eyes. They were hard. Only one thing to do, sister. Applejack nodded. This time they barely felt any impact at all. Only the light tapping of her and her brother's hooves, meeting amid a cloud of dark smoke. Applejack adjusted her hat once more. Mike? They're all over town, AJ, and they're looking for you. You and all your friends. Came up this way to try to warn you. It's almost too late. I'm fine, Mike. We have to get Apple Bloom out here, see? I'll get Apple Bloom and her friends. You find yours. They need you, AJ. Do your thing. Ah! She began, but stopped herself. Strange sounds and flashes had come from the candlelight the previous night. A declaration of war that was older than dirt had been made. And now Ponyville had come under attack by the strange magical ponies looking for the bearers of the elements of harmony. Whatever the problem was, whatever was happening, Applejack realized it had become her responsibility. Her responsibility and the responsibility of the other bearers of the elements. While she might want to take her family far away someplace safe, she had a duty to toll. And when duty called, an apple answered. You and Gran take the kids to Appaloosa, you hear? Don't steal Cousin Braybird, though. It's too dangerous. See if the local buffalo will take you land. They know him and Molly. McIntosh nodded. She knew he would not understand completely. Not just that they needed to lay low, but why Applejack needed to leave. That she may never see him or Apple Bloom again. Good luck, AJ. Applejack nodded once before turning away and sprinting towards Ponyville. She couldn't spare to express her goodbye out longer. She needed to find her friends. Twilight Sparkle is the new 10, Celestia had said. Don't worry. I think you two get along just fine. You share enough common interests. Luna thought back to her sister's words as Nihilus threw her through a nearby house. The walls folded under her, then cracked and burst into bits. Chips and splinters of wood followed her as she landed back first, on all things, a sofa. She shook the debris off of herself, noting how many pieces of wood were now lost in her back. She flexed her wings, found them to still be functional. While it was true that most of Pegasus' ability to fly came from magic, that magic was still centered in the wings. Damaging them too much would knock out Luna's two major advantages, and stop her from being able to escape. Escape was looking to be her only option. The spell Nihilus had used was not a complicated one. Luna's opponent had simply slapped her with enough telekinetic force to uproot a tree. As far as compact magic went, what Nihilus was doing was inefficient and bland. It makes sense, Luna thought. Twilight probably knew nothing about fighting with magic. Despite this, Luna was losing. She had not recovered from Terra's attack the previous night. She was exhausted. Her magical reserves were already half spent. Her wings and muscles ached whenever she moved, and casting spells required extra focus. Had she not been so exhausted, perhaps she would have been able to defeat the unicorn in single combat. As things were, she was barely scraping by. Luna rolled off the sofa and kicked it away from her, the Earth Pony's strength sending it sliding across the room. Looking around, she noticed that there were actually several sofas in the room with her, as well as a wide assortment of what looked like to be quills and ink. She was in a shop. She waited, and it wasn't long before Nihilus came in after her. The parasite had taken Twilight Sparkle, not made any drastic changes to the unicorn's form. She was still the same size as Luna remembered. It was now simply darker. Her coat seemed a darker purple, and her mane, energized with magical might, blazed blue-black. Luna had not known Celestia Student personally, but she had seen the unicorn before. Nihilus had still had the round muzzle and small mouth of Twilight Sparkle, as well as her sharp eyebrows and light, straight eyelashes. But where Twilight's eyes seemed deep and focused, analytical even, the parasite fitted to and fro, wide with madness. You know, the unicorn remarked casually, as he stepped through the gaping hole in the shop wall, I don't seem to hate you nearly as much as I hate the others. Several shingles fell, only to bounce off an invisible barrier over her head. I could offer you the chance to surrender. This fight is really just a formality. Even if I could restrain you, you are no match for the new prince. He'll get you eventually. The parasite went on. But I don't think I will. See, you're really the only pony in Equestria who could give me a good fight. I have all of Twilight Sparkle's power, and I am just itching, Luna attacked. She threw herself across the room, with all the force her wings and legs could muster. It was enough that she closed the distance between them in a fraction of a second. Nihilus was a unicorn, lacking the earth-pulling resilience that made Luna so hard to kill. Luna could take being thrown through walls all day, but one good hit would be all it took to bring the unicorn down. But Nihilus was not going to let herself be beaten so easily. With a whip-like crack, the unicorn had vanished, and Luna had passed through hot air. Instinctively, She angled herself towards the ground and tucked into the roll as she left the shop. Another intense blast of force whipped at her mane as it barreled over her head. She heard another building break behind her. She stopped and spun in place, finding herself back in town square. It was not as packed as it had been moments ago, but there were still small groups of ponies fleeing from terrorist brutes. Nihilus stood perhaps 20 paces away from her, mane blazing. Luna wasted no time. She tapped her unicorn magic, grabbing the shards of wood left over from the broken quill and sofa store as she threw them at her adversary. Nihilus's horn glowed, and the shards of wood broke harmlessly against her chest and face. Tiny splinters shattered against open eyes. "That's war magic," Luna thought, completely taken aback. "I don't even know that spell!" "You think I came here completely unprepared?" The parasite smirked. "I have a number of texts detailing how to cause harm to other ponies. The first spell I learned, naturally, was the one that made me near invincible. The second was an interesting bit of mind magic designed to control free will itself." "So you learned 2 spells in less than a day," Luna thought numbly. "Spells unicorn talented with magic might spend months working to perfect." "Twilight Sparkle's the new 10," her sister had said. She was loath to admit it, but she couldn't win. While Luna had enough magic to make even a powerful unicorn envious, her opponent outclassed her by an order of magnitude. Luna was world-class fire, but Nihilus had even more mobility because of her uncanny ability to teleport. Luna had enough latent earth pony magic to make her almost unkillable, but Nihilus had the spell for unbreakable skin. Despite decades of experience of war, Luna was going to lose to the parasite. Luna remembered a fairy battle similar to what she had fought once, against a powerful unicorn named Astor Corsair. She had won there, but then she had been unable to cast a blade. The magic was lost to her. She decided she couldn't afford to lose. She had to buy time at least, make sure the bearers were safe. She had to survive them, and help them fulfill their purpose. "What was it you always were fond of saying, sister?" she thought to herself. Nihilus turned her eyes and pawed at the ground. Her horn glowed as she prepared another attack. Her mouth curved into a wicked smile. "Time to make the best of a bad situation. Why is it you get to be the martyr, and I get left with all the work?" Rarity had an appreciation for beauty, and it was a truly beautiful morning. Shafts of sunlight broke through the tree branches, bathing her in a glow that made her dazzling white coat shine. It had been sunny all morning, despite the fact that Rainbow Dash still hadn't cleared the clouds that had formed. Rarity was waiting on the ground, as Fluttershy addressed the occupants of a nearby oak tree.
"It's all right. I'm not going to hurt you."
Rarity watched as Fluttershy gently rose through the air until she was level with the oak's higher branches. The birds in the trees scattered as she approached, multicolored blurs of feathers shooting off in different directions. The yellow Pegasus frowned slightly, but did not otherwise express any frustration. This was not the first time the animals had run away from her that morning. They were in a slightly wooded grove that was perhaps a minute walk from Carousel Boutique, where Rarity was supposed to be making cloaks for the Caroline aristocracy.
"Well, I wonder if they'll be worrying about the cloaks now,"
Rarity thought, reflecting once again on the previous night's events. Fluttershy descended softly to the ground. Before her were characteristic natural grace. The Pegasus gave a resigned sigh.
"I guess they're all just agitated with the loud noises last night. You didn't even act as scared during the trouble with the dragon."
Another sigh.
"Oh, guess I just had to wait for them to calm down."
Over the course of the morning, Fluttershy had approached more types of birds and rodents than Rarity could name. Every single one of them had fled when she got close. The woodland creatures would seldom run from any pony, let alone Fluttershy. It was curious behavior indeed.
"Well, if you're done,"
Rarity made a sweeping motion to indicate the grove around them.
checking in, I ought to get back to the boutique. Technically, we aren't open this early in the day, but I have so much to do I'd like to get a head start."
Fluttershy's eyes widened.
"Oh, I didn't mean to keep you, Rarity. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have asked you to come with me."
Rarity brought a hoof to her mouth and gasped.
"Oh my dear, that isn't what I meant at all. You know how much I love spending time with you,"
she said, even as she began leading them back towards boutique.
In truth, her mind had never left the shop.
She had spent her whole outing debating whether or not she wanted emeralds or green sapphires inlaid in the clasp. She didn't have enough of either gem to outfit the entire line, of course, but She could always borrow Spike and fetch more once he and Twilight returned from Carolot. The real problem with the clothes was now the trim. It really could be any color but green if she wanted to avoid her ghost seeing Karis. That was, if she decided on a trim at all, in which case she had the blind stitch to hem. Was meant the collar needed to be. Rarity's train of thought was really interrupted by a loud crack. She frowned and looked about, trying to determine the source of the noise.
You don't suppose that came from Ponyville, do you?
She asked, trying to hide her worry. She looked around for Fluttershy. Two eyes poked out from a nearby bush. The brush parted slightly as the Pegasus' pink mane slowly poked out and looked around. Followed shortly afterward by the rest of her body. Verity gave her a flat look.
Sorry.
Whatever it was, I suppose we'll find out when we get to town. What was it you were saying?
I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, Verity remarked. Has he really been paying that little attention? So sorry, dear. It seems I can't stay focused today. It was at that moment a purple pony came galloping at them, full tilt through the woods. Run! She screamed, with her labored breathing. Verity and Fluttershy both simply stared. Run! The wild-eyed mare urged again as she got closer. Suddenly stopped and regarded them with a look of pure terror. Oh no, she said, shaking her head, backing away. Looking as though she was seeing a pair of ghosts. You're them! Verity didn't know how to react. Fluttershy spoke. Shh. The Pegasus said softly as he approached the mare.
Just calm down and tell us. What's the matter? I'm sure we can help, whatever it is.
No! No! The mare continued, backing away. They're here for you. They're going to catch you. There's one following me! She stoically stole a glance behind her. You have to run, but I can't be near you. I'm sorry! The pony began to run. Stopped dead as a thickly built black coat with electric green mane filled and stepped into view. He began to move towards her, but stopped as he saw Rarity and Fluttershy. The mare curled up into a ball on the ground.
It's them!
She muttered quietly.
It's them! You don't need me! Please! You don't need me! Don't hurt me!
The colt approached him and examined him for a moment with his pure green eyes. They're here to catch you, the mare had said. The colt's eyes narrowed. For the second time in the space of a day, Verity heard the voice of her father. An earth pony strikes low and forward. They can kill you or I in one blow. It's imperative that you remain outside their reach. The colt took a step forward, and Verity took a step back. Always engage with a weapon, and remember that strong earth ponies can take dozens of times the punishment you or I can't. The colt lunged, and Verity sprung backwards, panicking.
He's attacking me!
She thought,
he's actually attacking me!
She had thought of the chest of diamonds under her bed. No, she thought, I am not his daughter. We are not his daughters! The colt began to circle her. She made sure to keep him at a distance. Fluttershy was nowhere to be seen.
I'll just negotiate with him. Yes, that's right. I'll disarm him with my natural charm and poise, or frighten him away with a bout of good old-fashioned whining, like I did those other ruffians.
She cleared her throat.
Ahem, yes. I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding, good sir.
She called out. The dark pony tilted his head.
Why don't we just conduct ourselves like gentle ponies, and have a nice little chat about whatever it is I've done to offend you?
The pony pawed at the ground.
At a distance,
Verity added meekly. He charged. Verity didn't jump out of the way or defend herself. She simply stood, frozen with fear. For a moment, she was a filly again.
But I don't want to practice Cinnamon Swirl's costume parties today.
The colt collided with her, throwing her to her side. He rolled on top of her, pinning her. He had to be twice her weight. There were tears running down her face as she screamed at him.
I spent hours making my costume. It was going to be the most beautiful and best costume of any pony out there.
It was the first time she had ever yielded to her father. The first time she had ever refused to practice. She felt the colt shift, moving her onto her back. Front leg pressed down her neck, choking her. Her mane was trapped under his other front leg, and as he sifted it pulled taut, tearing at her scalp. She should have stopped when she remained quiet. She didn't.
Practice is stupid. I don't care about having a weapon. I want friends. I want a cutie mark. And when I get one, it isn't going to look like yours.
She was going to die. She was only realizing it now. Why hadn't she been able to get out of the way? Yes, as if her vision began to turn red. Everything lost focus except for the two green eyes staring down at her. She could only hear her heartbeat. Her head felt as if it was going to explode.
I don't want to be like you!
Her father had regarded her for a moment, expressionless.
Then he grabbed one of the metal shards they used for training and slammed his daughter hard across the face, drawing blood. Rarity's world began to spin. She closed her eyes. "I will not tolerate whining," he had said. "I will not cower and sob. The strong do what they want, my Rarity, and you are a weak little child. I will make you strong, though, and then you can go to all the parties you like. Now, pick up a charge." Even at such a young age, Rarity had been a perfectionist. She had made a good student. She couldn't even feel the weight on her neck or the pounding in her head anymore. She wondered if her senses had gone numb or she had already died. She had realized she had been breathing for quite some time. Dead then.
Mary, you can get up now. I got rid of the bad pony almost a minute ago.
You know, listeners, after sitting through about, almost a month of Rarity's complete and total character assassination, watching her get mocked, drawn through the mud, insulted, kicked to the ground, riffed, treated like a bitch, seeing her like this, where she's smart, gets to be a badass later on in the fic, is a breath of fresh air. You see, people, this is how you write Rarity. Take notes. This is also how you write Fluttershy, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Pinkie Pie. Rarity opened her eyes to find herself still in the clearing, her neck throbbing where the earth pony had tried to strangle her.
"I'm alive,"
she menaced hoarsely. "He's gone."
"It was incredible."
The purple pony stood next to the nosily sinking Fluttershy. "She just looked at it, right in the eye, and it stopped. Then it just vanished, like it never been there in the first place." Fluttershy was clearly distraught.
I just tried to tell him to go away, to leave us alone. I didn't mean to.
She gulped.
Kill him.
She finished and whispered. Rarity's mind was still reeling from the attempt on her life. The metal shards clacked uselessly against the walls. "In battle, we must kill our enemies without hesitation. If you cannot attack your father properly in practice, how can I expect you to do this? Try to kill me, girl! I know you want to." Rarity tried to focus on the present.
"You say it just vanished?"
"Yes, like it was made of smoke." Rarity nodded.
Then,
It was simply a conservation idea. It wasn't even a lie to begin with. She had no idea whether or not that was true, but it was what Fluttershy needed to hear. Indeed, the Pegasus vivaciously relaxed at her words.
"Thank you, Fluttershy. You saved my life."
"Now," she began, turning towards the purple mare, "I need you to tell me everything, as quickly as you can." Her throat was badly damaged, and the words came out hard.
"This is going to probably leave a very nasty bruise."
The mare looked at Rarity to Fluttershy, then sat.
"She came to town with so many of those black ponies. I knew there was something wrong. Every pony did. She told every pony that the princess was dead."
"Who came to town?" Rarity demanded.
"Which princess?" "Celestia. She said Celestia was dead, that we had a king and queen now. I don't remember their names, but she also said there was a prince now. I remember his name was Empyrean. Then he said your name, and yours."
The purple pony pointed to Fluttershy.
"She told us you were rebels, and then those things she had with her started hurting ponies. They were looking for you and your friends."
It was too much information. Rarity could process it later. Right now, only one thing was important. "Who gave them the orders?"
The purple mare looked away as she spoke. "It wasn't her. It was like she was different somehow."
"Who was trying to hurt me?"
The purple pony looked up. "Your friend," she said softly. "The librarian, Twilight."
Silence filled the grove.
"Oh no," Rarity said softly. "That has to be a mistake. Twilight isn't... You wouldn't..."
Rarity heard her friend let out a heart-wrenching sob.
"What's going on?"
But Fluttershy would have to wait.
"Did any of the black ponies head towards Sweet Apple Acres?"
she asked the purple pony in a level tone. The mare was obviously still in shock, and her answer came delayed. Rarity realized she must look like a savage, covered in dirt with her mane in disarray.
The purple mare looked up at Rarity with fear. "She sent a group of them there specifically to get a Applejack." "Fluttershy."
The yellow Pegasus looked up, eyes studded with tears.
"Do you remember when we go to pick Trilliums?"
The Pegasus nodded.
"Wait for me there. Stay away from Ponyville and do not go back to your cottage."
Rarity turned away, toward Ponyville.
"Everything will be all right."
She didn't give the Pegasus time to answer. She broke into a run.
Rarity was not an athletic pony, so he preferred to leave the unsavory physical pastimes to ponies like Applejack and Rainbow Dash. But Ponyville was only moments away, and she had hardly broken a sweat by the time she had cleared the trees. She hoped that Fluttershy would do as she told. The Pegasus had obviously also been in some amount of shock before Rarity left them. But it was understandable. Rarity doubted that she was fit to make the decisions in her current state either. She was, after all, charging headfirst into Ponyville nonetheless, a place apparently filled with strange ponies who were trying to capture her. Sweet Apple Acres was not her destination. No, she first needed to get to Carousel Boutique. Then she would go to the Acres, warn Applejack, make sure Sweetie Belle was safe. Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash would have to make do on their own. Rarity cleared the trees and went down at Ponyville. She felt like she was back in the grove, being strangled. I am proud of the progress you have made, daughter. Most unicorns your age would struggle to lift even one shard. Yet today, we have shown that with the correct pressure is applied into the right places, you are capable of lifting 4. Rarity tasted blood in her mouth. She could hardly stand. Yes, you are a precious little filly. One day, you will make me proud. Ponyville was in chaos. Ponies were assaulted in the streets by strange black earth ponies. Not a window in sight was intact, their glass littering the roads and twinkling in the morning sun. Several buildings had collapsed entirely. One of them was Rarity's home. Carousel Boutique was a shattered heap of painted wood and cloth. What had once been a top-tier fashion emporium, a temple of tasteful dress and impeccable style, was simply reduced to nothing. All of her work, all of her possessions were gone. A small part of her realized she now had no products to treat her mane, which at the moment was a dirty mess. It was too much to handle. She fell to the ground, shaking as she looked at the ruins of her livelihood. Princess Celestia was dead. By now, Pinkie Pie was probably dead too, and Applejack was solved soon afterward. Rainbow Dash would easily be able to escape, but Twilight was either still missing or trying to kill them. And Sweetie Belle would... No! Rarity thought adamantly. Rarity would get Sweetie Belle to time. The filly would be fine. Rarity might not have a roof to put over her sister's head anymore, but she would never, ever stop being a big sister. She would give Sweetie Belle everything she had, even if it cost Rarity everything she had, even if it cost her her own identity. She would be his daughter, just for today. How dare you! She said to the cults ravaging Ponyville. All of them were too far away to actually hear her. Rarity knew what to do. She ran full tilt past the Carousel Boutique and focused. Her hornet glowed with magic. There were 2 of the strange cults sifting through the ruins of the boutique. Each of them turned its attention as she approached. When she got close enough, one of them lunged for her. She rolled out of the way of its lunge, putting it between itself and the ruins of the boutique. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw the second creature preparing to lunge. She released her magic, letting it take the form of a gem-finding spell as she rolled. It was a specific form of the spell, a certain frequency of magic designed only to detect diamonds of a certain kind. 14 clustered points of light appeared in her mind. As she came out of her roll, she pulled on all of them. Rarity was a talented unicorn, not just in areas of taste, class, design, common sense, grooming, sewing, artistic vision, and social graces, but in magic as well. While she could never rival the ability of a magically talented unicorn like Twilight, she still carried a level of focus and skill many unicorns would envy. Indeed, she could manipulate a dozen objects at once, while she carried a conversation and operated a sewing machine. But focus only went so far, and the unicorn's magic was designed to aid their special talent. A pony could only move something so heavy and so quickly, and even that would quickly become exhausting. Rarity was no exception, unless the object in question was, say, a gem. As Rarity came with her roll and regained her footing, 14 enchanted diamonds tore their way from the ruins of Carousel Boutique. They punched through cloth, wood, and the unlucky black construct that stood between the gems and their mistress. As Rarity was showered with a corporeal black mist, the gems aligned in front of her, various irregularities interlocking perfectly. The second pony had already lunged. It was met in midair by a length of the hardest, sharpest material known to ponykind, about as long as Rarity's tail. The regular diamonds had tessellated into a perfectly straight edge. The fractures that joined them refracting into light into a myriad colors that sparkled through the air as Rarity cleaved her enemy in twain.
She was rewarded with another shower of slaking darkness. I said it before and I'll say it again. After sitting through Starfleet and watching Rarity get dragged through the mud and treated like inferior, watching this is so satisfying! Kick ass, Rarity! She brought the blade to rest floating in front of her, parallel to the ground, and looked around to face the rest of Ponyville. 4 more dark ponies were in the nearest street. Some of them kicking town's ponies were on the ground. None of them paid her any heed. She split her blade along its fractures and sent 4 brilliant spikes outward. When they returned, the street was clear. Rarity was already making her way towards Sweet Apple Acres. She was scurrying past the town square when none other than Princess Luna came flying through the town hall's windows and landed not 20 feet away from her. The princess was covered in scrapes, and an oblong metal rod was jutting out of her shoulder. The glass from the window did not fall to the ground, however. It stayed frozen in the air until the alicorn righted herself on the ground. Then it plunged through the broken window frame, treating the room inside to a storm of shining guards. The princess took in her surroundings with a wide sweep of her head, noting Rarity. Her gaze turned, whipping back and forth between the broken window, the surrounding rooftops, and the empty streets. Then she spoke. Rarity? Rarity was aghast. She had completely forgotten her manners.
Princess, you know my name. Ah!
She squealed as she came down to a deep bow. The princess was breathing heavily as she spoke, eyes continuing to scan their surroundings. Thou must runneth. Find thy friends and get out of here, now! Rarity had forgotten her task when she spied the princess. She remembered what she needed to do, but now she wasn't so certain.
But you're hurt.
She could not leave what was possibly Equestria's only remaining leader to bleed out in the town square. The princess spat out a mouthful of blood. I'll be fine. Now I'm giving you an order, and as your princess, run! Save thyself before she... Just then, another leaf of steel spun through the air with incredible speed, striking Luna on the back of her head. There was a loud crack, and the princess was thrown forward, face first into the dirt. She didn't get up. Smooth laughter filled the air. Rarity looked around, searching for the sound's origin. She found it in the window Luna had broken earlier. It was Twilight. Or so it seemed to be at first glance. She had the same face, but her coat was a deep armor, her mane a rising mass of black hair, and she tinged at the edges with azure? That was a darker shade than azure, like a navy blue, but a bit more vibrant. Yes, definitely too much hue to be as mundane as a shade of navy blue, or has ultramarine rarity. The mayor spoke her first name as a statement, filled with loathing. And Rarity was brought out of her thoughts, and reminded of the fact that she was in mortal peril. She looked up and saw the new pony bringing herself gently to the ground. An odd feat, considering the broken window had been on the 2nd story. The mayor's eyes radiated a hatred that Rarity knew Twilight Sparkle to be incapable of. Whoever this was, it wasn't her friend. The air around her crackled with Rarity as her horn began to glow.
My, the mayor said. Is that a blade you have there?
The other unicorn chuckled.
What a completely irrelevant surprise!
The Abergran unicorn cast a spell. Immediately, Rarity was hit by a wave of force that knocked her breath away. She curled up as tightly as she could as she was thrown backwards, tumbling through the square until she was struck with the wall. A splitting pain filled her head, and her legs trembled as she failed to stand. Somewhere during the throw, she had lost her hold on her blade diamonds. She tasted blood. Her voice sounded, but Rarity couldn't tell from where.
Seems our princess is down and out. Hopefully I didn't hit her too hard. I'm supposed to keep her alive, you see. You, on the other hand.
Rarity was suddenly thrown up against the wall. Her legs spread out around her. She could barely make out the form of the other unicorn in front of her. Vision was so blurry.
I'm sure you think I'm going to kill you. And I could. But I see you now, here, like this. And you're just so pretty.
Rarity's senses began to return to her. What was the other pony talking about? Rarity's senses began to return to her. What was the other pony talking about?
Even with your mane all trashy, and that unseemly bruise on your neck, even all covered in blood and dirt, you're just so precious. And of course you know it. But that isn't ever good enough for you, is it?
The unicorn leaned in to whisper in her ear.
You have to look perfect.
Rarity knew she needed to escape, but somehow the magic that held her was impossibly strong. She couldn't even move a single leg.
Rarity could feel the other pony's breath in her ear.
No, Rarity, I'm not going to kill you. You're going to kill yourself, eventually. And you're going to do it because I tell you to.
Rarity had to escape, find her sister, but she couldn't move. She couldn't focus enough to call her blade through the pain. The other unicorn stepped back and regarded Rarity, crucified against the wall with glee.
No, Rarity, I'm not going to kill you.
Her horn glowed, and a point of twisting darkness appeared in front of Rarity's face. Rarity tried to draw away from the rising ball of blackness. The other pony grinned.
I'm going to give you a makeover.
Rarity whimpered as the point of darkness drew closer. Luna barreled into the other pony, and the point of darkness vanished as Rarity felt herself fall away from the wall. The other unicorn was not so easily had, however. Moments after, Luna struck her. She simply vanished, reappearing in the center of the square. Luna returned to Rarity. Her head was slightly misshapen, and a metal rod still stuck out of her shoulder. She was covered in blood.
As soon as I give you the whole chance,
Luna said quietly enough. Only Rarity could hear, "Run!" The unicorn's horn glowed, and the metal protruding from her shoulder wrenched itself free, while a sickening squelch and hung in the air beside her.
Understand?
Rarity willfully stopped her back legs from shaking with fear.
What am I doing here?
She thought, calling her blade to herself once more. She tightened the magical grip she had on her diamond blade, and nodded slightly in her answer to her princess. Their adversary attacked. The morning air was crisp and warm. A light breeze ruffled the nameless pony's sleek black feathers. The sun shone down on Ponyville, bright and cheerful, ignorant of the destruction and violence consuming the town. The nameless Pegasus was surrounded by Nihilus's puppets. There were 4 of them forming a ring around her. 2 of them were attempting to break down the door to Sugarcube Corner.
Just don't think,
she thought firmly.
Just don't think of anything and it won't hurt you. The madness will just go away.
The ponies she had brought with her were bucking a door to the shop, but no avail. It had obviously been barred from the other side, making little progress breaking it down. Useless brutes. The black colts were nothing. They were scum, worth even less than her. She didn't even have a name. But she had a name last night. She tried to remember.
Don't think, she reminded herself. Just do. It'll go away.
She called it the insanity. It was in her, through her, making sure she didn't do anything bad. Anything Nihilus wouldn't want her to do. It was always with her, dimming her vision at the edges, making her skin itch. It writhed and twisted in her belly, making her feel as though she swallowed an eel. It was always with her, because she was always resisting. A part of her didn't want to be cruel to others. She didn't want to be merciless and hateful. She didn't want to do what Nihilus told her. It was there, a remnant of her former self, the struggle against anything the insanity wanted her to do. And because a part of her was almost always resisting, the insanity was always with her, muddling her thoughts. And the more she resisted, the harder the insanity would grip her. It would make her forget herself, forget where she was. It would squeeze her insides and crawl under her skin. It would become 1,000 insects buzzing around in her brain. She would try to be the other pony all she wanted, but the insanity would take over and follow Nihilus' orders regardless. Once it had, however, it would recede again. The nameless Pegasus would be cruel and merciless. Then she would be her old self again. And when she was her old self, she resisted. When she resisted, the insanity took her, used her, then let go, and she was her old self again. She hadn't slept at all the previous night. It had taken her hours of mental torture, a teeter-tottering between her old self and the insanity, before she realized how to keep the two balanced. She simply tried not to think, so she hung between the malicious spell and her old psyche. She wouldn't want to be cruel and merciless, and all the other things Nihilus had said. Not yet. But she simply didn't think. It was almost like the insanity was gone. Almost. The door was cracked and splintered now, and slowly being pressed inwards. The vermin were making progress. On the other side of the door was Sugarcube Corner and...
Don't think!
The nameless Pegasus thought sharply to herself.
Not about that.
Instead, she tried to come up with a name for herself while she waited. Her mistress had only forbidden her from using her old one. There was no reason she couldn't come up with a new one for herself. A new name that would be a perfect thing to help her forget her old self. Help her be cruel, dispassionate. She was a glossy black mare now, with a deep green mane, the color of a storm cloud.
Storm Cloud? No, she didn't want to be a cloud. Dark Dash? The buzzing in her ears grew louder. She was immediately discarded the idea. Too similar to her name. Black Blitz? It had a certain ring to it, and she was fast. Black Storm? Storms were cool. She decided she needed more words for the color black. Rarity had a fancy word for every shade imaginable. Unicorn had gotten through 60 with a handful of Rainbow Dash's mane alone. Her stomach knotted, and her legs grew weak. The buzzing in her head grew louder, and her vision tunneled as the darkness grew. Don't think that name, she thought desperately. Don't think about her either. Don't think about any of them. They're all going to die. Don't think! The door burst, and the puppets charged into Sugar Corner. Black Blitz followed. The interior of Sugar Corner was not as she remembered it. The tables and chairs had all been piled against the door, except for one that had been tipped on its side at the far end of the bakery. Evidently, some pony had known Pinkie Pie was a target. Black Blitz moved to the center of the room as the puppets cleared the broken pieces of furniture from the entryway. She had to force herself not to remember anything about the room. Her old self was getting agitated. Don't think. Just do. She had to remember why she was there. Dashing! Despite the circumstances, Pinkie Pie's voice had lost none of its energy. Dash turned, and the insanity proceeded to choke her out. You will no longer answer to that name. Nihilus' voice echoed in her head. You will be cruel to others. Her stomach knotted, and skin began to crawl. The sight of Pinkie had awakened a new resistance in Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash, she thought to herself. Black Blitz is a stupid name. And as the edges of her vision began to creep inward, till all she could see was Pinkie Pie. Standing on the staircase that led up to her room. She couldn't fight the insanity forever, but she wouldn't need to. Pinkie! She managed to choke out. Run! She gritted her teeth and crossed the floor as the blackness consumed her vision. The insanity took hold. Suddenly, she crossed the distance between them with a powerful sweep of her wings. She slapped the pink mare across the face with a front hoof. The insanity immediately gave a little, and the hoof was jerked away from Pinkie Pie, as Rainbow Dash realized what she was doing. She was a strong pony. Not as strong as an earth pony focusing their innate magical talent, but strong enough to hoof wrestle even the biggest Pegasus and come out on top. Pinkie's head snapped to the side. She turned back to the nameless Pegasus. Yes? She asked softly. Dash knew that the puppets were going to try to help her. She had only moments before the insanity took her again. Don't touch her! She called out to the black ponies that had followed her inside. She pumped her wings as her vision darkened once more to throw herself backwards off the staircase. You will beat Pigmina Diane Pie to within an inch of her life! She used her wings to spin midair and aimed a back leg at Pinkie's face. The party pony had the sense to dodge this time, tilting her head out of the way with surprising speed. While Dash was spinning in midair, she threw herself sideways in an aerial somersault, wrapping her two back legs around the leg Dash had used to kick her. Pinkie used the ground to twist Dash in front of her as she continued through the air, spinning over the stairway banister and landing on the floor of Sugar Corner. Dash was face down, Pinkie holding her pin with whatever strange leg grab she was using. Woo! Pinkie exclaimed. The vermin around them were completely motionless, following the orders Pegasus had given them when she was Rainbow Dash. Some pony's having a bad day! She released Dash's legs, and the Pegasus threw her front legs to the pink pony's face again. Pinkie Pie threw both punches aside with her own front legs, then shifted downward, pinning the Pegasus' front legs to the floor. Her face was inches away from Dash's. She smiled. But I know just the thing to cheer you up and get you well! She let go of Dash's front legs and said, First, she whispered so loudly that every pony could hear her, you should stop hanging around with these guys. They look like Mr. Grumpy McGrumpurpusses, if you know what I mean, and the look is wearing off on you. She gave a conspicuous wink and noticed the Pegasus. Dashing? The Pegasus hardly heard her through the buzzing that filled her ears. That's not my name, she said. My name is Darkbolt, or... What had she decided on earlier? It was so hard to remember. Black Blitz, or Stormcloud. She was stalling. The insanity needed her to do one thing. Just this one thing. Then she could be any name she wanted. Take her! The Dark Pegasus ordered. Her vermin moved towards the pink pony. She watched on the expression of Pinkie Pie's face turn slack. Then saw the bright earth pony turn towards her, mouth open, and raised her eyebrows. The look in her eyes became one of understanding. She was finally taking things seriously.
finally realizing that Darkbolt was trying to kill her. Pinkie Pie's lower lip quivered as the sick vermin closed in around her.
What's wrong with you, Daisy?
She didn't sound angry. Bigamina dying pie. Dash got to her feet as the first two of her vermin reached the pink pony. One of them aimed a kick at her chest with both back legs. The other struck out with a front hoof punch. Pinkie Pie flipped onto her back and slid the front leg around, striking the vermin's legs mid-kick, making it lose its balance and fell on its belly. The second vermin's punch sailed over the head as he grabbed the offending limb between her two back legs. With a powerful twist of her thighs, she threw the vermin to the ground and brought herself to rest on top of him. Another vermin began to tackle the pink pony. Pinkie Pie simply straightened her legs and bounced, clearing the vermin as she landed on top of his downed comrade. She landed next to the nameless Pegasus.
Come with me, Daisy!
She said, ducking to avoid another punch, and striking out with her back legs to trip off the offending vermin.
We'll find Twilight. She'll know what to do.
She flicked her tail in the face of an approaching vermin, causing him to sneeze.
Afterwards, when you're all better, we can throw a party.
She turned and threw a handful of confetti into the face of another vermin. It stopped, momentarily confused. Dash attacked. She landed on Pinkie Pie's back, wrapping two legs around her shoulders to squeeze at Pinkie's neck. She beat her wings downward, slamming Pinkie headfirst into the floor. The Earth Pony struggled, but was dazed and had no leverage. She began to jerk spasmodically. The nameless Pegasus was doing her job well, and the insanity receded.
No!
Dash screamed and loosened her grip, tried to roll off the Earth Pony. She ended up beside her on the floor, back to the door. She wasn't going to let herself choke Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie let out a squeak. Thump! The insanity tightened and so did her grip. She needed to knock Pinkie Pie unconscious, and everything would be so easy. Thump! Curse! Pinkie Pie tried to speak out the suffocating hot headlock and failed. Once he was out, the buzzing would go away. The insanity would leave her alone. She could pick a new name. She felt the pink pony go limp with unconsciousness. The insanity receded momentarily. Snap! Thump! Too late. She saw the dark cloud at the corner of her field of vision. She turned, only to see an orange hoof hit her directly in the forehead. Her vision swam, rolled over on her back. She saw two more vermin disintegrate, and a Stetson-wearing Earth Pony jumped over her with Pinkie Pie on her back. The room stopped spinning, as she felt herself blacking out. A bad, bad part of the nameless pony cheered, but she was already unconscious before the insanity could reprimand it. Crack! Nihilus's teleport brought her to a hallway just within Pound Hall. The smell of slightly singed wood filled her nostrils with energy from the spell scorched the floor. Repercussions of her battle with Luna knocked the pictures, lining the hall away from the wall, and could see a gaping hole at the end of the hall where one of her attacks had struck earlier. Before her teleport, she had been standing outside Town Hall. She had been far from where she was now, outside the building. Nihilus watched, as less than a second after she entered the building, a dozen glary gems punched through the wall behind her former position. Rarity was not nearly as inept as he had thought. He seemed to have no issue with trying to kill her. Guess I really did kill her sister, Nihilus thought to her passenger with glee.
You're evil,
was Twilight's response.
How can any pony be so cruel?
Nihilus tapped her magic once and flung herself through space, this time focusing on a point on the square outside. There was a sharp crack. Found herself facing Rarity and the princess. They had their backs to her, with Rarity's gems all buried in the town's walls. The unicorn was completely defenseless. Unlike Princess Luna, who had gratuitous amount of Earth Pony magic to keep her alive, Rarity would go down with only one good hit.
I'm evil, am I?
She replied in a dressed voice.
You're just catching up onto that one now.
She threw a wave of force at the white unicorn. It was a basic spell, one poorly suited for fighting, but Twilight had not known any war magic whatsoever. What magic Twilight did have was more raw magical talent than any other unicorn in the Equestrian history. When Nihilus was in control, she could hold her own against a young unicorn. Even her basic spells packed as much as a locomotive. When it turned in time just to see Nihilus finish her spell, the princess would unleash a spell of her own, causing an invisible barrier of force to spring up between Nihilus and Rarity. While Luna wasn't strong enough to stop her spell with force alone, she didn't need to. Her barrier angled the wave of concussive force downward, causing it to hardly click up a pile of dirt. The Moon Princess's spell had the additional effect of obscuring them for several moments, while Earth rained down the square.
Several pieces splintered off wood, and stones were thrown at her through the cloud of dirt. But Nihilus let them bounce harmlessly off of her magically hardened skin. She still felt impacts, but her spell almost made it impossible for anything to pierce her flesh. The dirt cleared, revealing Rarity, but no Luna. In a distance, having remained in complete state of disarray, a nasty bruise along her neck, the unicorn was now covered in earth. She gave Nihilus a murderous look.
"That!" she screeched. "You'll pay for this, you wicked mare! You aren't Aberine, you're just a muddy maroon! You will look like a rotten plum!"
Nihilus looked down at her dark, reddish-purple cloak. She actually thought it was quite striking. What was wrong with plums? Plums were delicious. She almost missed a cluster of razor-sharp gems speeding towards her. Her magical skin wasn't that strong. She teleported to the first place she could think of, back in the hallway in Town Hall. She was struck immediately in the chest by a pinpoint of force so powerful it sent her backwards down the hallway. Luna had been waiting for her. She tried to gain footing as she skidded across the floor, but her head slid out the hallway floor as if it were being made of ice. Luna somehow turned it into a frickless surface, preventing Nihilus from gaining her bearings. She's good, Nihilus thought. She reacted by magically throwing a magical barrier between her and Luna. Luna's next spell, a ball of silvery light, struck the barrier and exploded into a shower of sparks. The shock of the spell striking the barrier sent Nihilus spinning down the fenceless hallway once again. She reached outward, desperately trying to cling to something to stop her slide. Her hoof found a hole in the wall she had made earlier. She clung to it, stopping her movement, rolled out into the patio surrounding the town hall. She thought to her feet.
"Left!"
Her instinct seemed to scream. She turned her head sharply, and was brought face to face with the hole in the wall she had just exited. It was also empty. She turned to her right, too late to see Rarity's glimmering blade served towards her. She ducked, but wasn't fast enough. The blade opened her face from the end of her muzzle to just below her eye, before burying itself to the wall behind her. Her instincts hadn't warned her. It had been Twilight. She was trying to get them both killed. She threw a wave of force towards Rarity, but before her spell was even loosed, Luna had flown in low and grabbed the unicorn, carrying her target away.
"Get back here!"
Nihilus screamed, blinking blood out of her eye. She had to get to Rarity. She had to get to them all, make them suffer.
"I think I know why you hate them so much,"
Twilight said to her quietly.
"Shut up, you little fool! You could have killed us!"
Nihilus had no way of sealing the wound on her face. It was going to scar.
"That's the plan, kiddo."
You'd think I wouldn't die for them? Nihilus had no response. She instead set out for the doctor's office. It had been abandoned in the chaos. Nihilus found a needle and cut what was to crudely stitch up her face while she waited. It was perhaps a half hour before her Earth Pony servants found her waiting on the steps of Town Hall, having thoroughly searched Ponyville. Or at least, what service she had left to return to her. Of her original 40-something Earth Ponies, 19 remained. What was worse, not one of Twilight's friends had been caught. Nihilus stared into disbelief as two of Terra's Earth Ponies deposited the unconscious form of her pet at her feet. Nihilus made a mental note to punish the Pegasus later. Inside her head, Twilight cheered. Nihilus didn't understand. She had access to all of Twilight's memories. She knew everything the young unicorn did. While she was separate on consciousness, she was still very much Twilight Sparkle. And she knew Twilight's friends. None of them could fight. None of them had any combat experience, no training whatsoever in the art of war. Indeed, Twilight had no eyelids when it came to weaponizing magic. They were simply a group of mares who happened to bear the elements of harmony. Nothing Twilight knew suggested that any of them would fight off her minions, let alone all of them. Rainbow Dash was a black belt in whatever martial art he taught in Cloudsdale, yet Pinkie Pie had somehow knocked her unconscious and defeated half a dozen of Terra's Earth Ponies to boot. The pink Earth Pony was always full of surprises. Nihilus had counted on an Applejack being able to take care of herself. She was the strongest Earth Pony Twilight had known. It was likely to take a hard beating. But to defeat 8 other Earth Ponies? The idea was absurd. Fluttershy could always fly away if she was caught outdoors, so it made sense he might be able to escape. The Pegasus was usually outdoors, tending to her little critters. Against the Pegasus, her earthbound minions would be woefully inadequate. What Rarity had done, however, was beyond Nihilus' ability to rationalize. She had obviously not been in the implosion that had killed Sweetie Belle, was accounted for her survival. But what about her blade? The fashion designer somehow knew the most deadly and sophisticated war magic known to unicorns.
It wasn't a special you could simply knit. No, you had to force the weapon beforehand. The unicorn had not known any other spells with which to fight Nihilus. She couldn't actually perform any other spells on account of her special talent being gems, or fasten, or sewing, or whatever it was. But all unicorns could learn a spell to turn their special talent into a weapon, and Rarity apparently had. That simple fact went against everything Twilight known about the unicorn.
Next time I fight that little minx, she won't have a princess to protect her, she resolves. Let's see how long she lasts then.
Nihilus told Prince Empyrean that Twilight's friends were responsible for defeating Nightmare Moon and Discord, because they were some of the most powerful ponies in Equestria. She said that they were Celestia's specially trained elites, ponies used for precision attacks. Faced with their survival, the irony of her lie was not lost on her. It was she who had the elements of harmony, of course. Titan, Terran, and Empyrean didn't know their existence yet, and the Tower of Harmony had been destroyed during Celestia's fight with their king. Nihilus had retrieved them before traveling to Ponyville to corrupt Rainbow Dash. Once all Twilight's friends were hers, she would find a way to harvest them and use them herself. Then she would destroy and dispose of the Alicorn family and be Queen of Equestria. She was the only one capable of transferring an Alicorn's power. She had done so with Celestia to help Terra create a new sun. If she could take a defeated Alicorn's magic and bestow it upon another Alicorn, why not herself? The elements of harmony were the most powerful magic in Equestria, and once she had them, she would be invincible. Prince Empyrean thought that the resources he was lending to her were going to be used to prevent ponykind from rebelling against the new regime. They were, for now. He thought she needed to kill her targets, because they were highly trained guerrillas capable of causing his government serious harm. In truth, they were the only reason he and his parents were still alive.
Too bad you let them get away, Twilight lamented sarcastically. Now you'll never get to rule Equestria. Oh, I'm not too worried, Nihilus replied. You see, when I teleported, I let Luna see the null space where I'm keeping the elements. She knows I have them, and she knows they're the only way to save you. Your friends are going to come to me.
Nihilus paused, however. Had Twilight known what she was thinking? Nihilus couldn't tell what Twilight was thinking. But could Twilight perhaps read her thoughts? It was a disturbing revelation.
So you can't read my mind.
The unicorn's voice sounded cheerfully in Nihilus's head.
But I can read yours. Good to know.
Firstly, Nihilus had no way of harming her passenger unconscious. She decided to ignore the insolent mare for the time being. Instead, sent for a quill, ink, and parchment. Her letter read,
Dear Prince Empyrean, the operation at Ponyville had met with mixed results. I succeeded in regards to one of our 5 targets, but the other 4 were prepared and escaped. They would not have, but I was hindered by your fiancée, Princess Luna, who also escaped. She has joined forces with the remaining 4 elites, no doubt intending to see rebellion among the general populace. While I search for them, I will continue to spread the message of your rule against Equestria's remaining towns and cities. The citizenry needs to be shown we are not the force to be trifled with. The constructs of terror were inept and useless. While they may suffice an average soldier, they sustained heavy losses against Celestia's own. I will need more adequate forces, especially of to capture your bride-to-be. These ponies are our only free link to Celestia left in the kingdom. Give me the resources I need, and I will kill them, my prince. The hero will be absolute. Your faithful student, Nihilus Nix Nock.